Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Alright, guys. What to see and do in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, I'm not the most outgoing person. I might be the most introverted person you'll ever meet, if you ever do meet me. But with the YouTube channel comes along a bit of confidence. I feel like I'm getting a bit more kind of open, and I think that's a good thing for me. Definitely, because it's not one of my best qualities, for sure. But yeah, let's check out a few of these things. I'm absolutely going back to Europe. I've been twice. Once when I was in 2006, I believe it was, when I was 12 or 13 or 14, 13 or 14, something like that. And so I don't remember that much. And the other time was, I want to say 2018, 2017. Yeah, but I'm definitely going back, especially because I looked very much through a World War II lens. I've always been interested in history, and last time I went to Europe, I was so ensconced in World War II stuff, and so that's kind of the way I looked through it, and what I wanted to see and visit was very much what was associated with World War II. But I'd like to go back, having learned about the Napoleonic Wars and all this stuff. I'm not a big nightlife person. I'm very boring. I like a good museum and historical sites and, you know, obviously hikes, nature, and boats, whatever, stuff like that. But I don't really count, like, a pub as a nightlife. Like, I'll go to a pub for sure, but as far as, like, yeah. But anyways, I'm talking too much. What to see and do in Stockholm, Sweden. Let's go. My name's Connor.
Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Walter's World, and today we're in Stockholm, Sweden, the capital of Sweden, one of the cool, most advanced, modern cities in Europe. Great place to go for a weekend. And today what we have for you are what you should see and do when you're here in Stockholm. Basically, our top 10 Stockholm. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you should do when you do come to Stockholm is wander the Old Town. Because just like most European cities, the Old Town brings back the history of the city. You go there and you see the Royal Palace, and you see the Cathedral, you see the shops and the restaurants and everything that's out there. And it does take you back into that old world Sweden. And when you're here in Sweden in general, you know, Sweden is very modern with modern architecture and stuff like that, but that's one of those places you can go and you feel like you're back in the old world, and it is really cool to go through there. And there are museums throughout the Old Town to check out. Probably the most famous of the museums there, aside from the Royal Palace, which I'll talk about later, is the Nobel Museum, you know, the Nobel Prize. Alfred Nobel is actually from Sweden, so they have the museum there for here. Actually, they give away the awards there at the City Hall, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so the first thing you gotta do for here.
Okay, I want to go there.
Actually, they give away the awards there at the City Hall, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so the first thing you gotta do is wander the Old Town, enjoy. And if you're here in the summer, eat outside in one of the cafes. Really cool to do. Now, the second thing you want to see when you're here is also in the Old Town, like I said, the Royal Palace. When you go through, you can take a tour when you go through there, but the things I like to do is I like to go to the armory so you can see the suits of armor and all the battlements and stuff like that, which is kind of cool when you think of, you think of Sweden, you think Vikings and warriors and stuff like that. And so you can see kind of the old world versions of all those things. There's other museums inside. There's a whole collection with antiquities and all kinds of stuff. So it's well worth it to get a nice little feel of the royal family and the history of Sweden when you go in the Royal Palace. So well worth checking out. The third thing to see when you're here, and I'm kind of putting all these old town sites together, is going to the Stockholm Cathedral. When you go in there, my favorite part of there is actually there's a statue of St. George slaying the dragon, and it's, they say it's a life-size representation. I'm like, yeah, but I've never seen a real dragon, so I'm going to take your word for it on that. But it is a very cool church to check out, and there are a lot of cool churches around Stockholm.
Oh, guys,
for me,
question?
the cathedral.
I saw one of these in.
It's a very cool church.
So in church, I saw a lot of these over there. And I've been to church like twice in my life. Once when I was really young, and another time when I was in college when I had to do it for a theology class. These staircases right here, I noticed them in a few churches in Europe. What exactly are these for?
To check out, and there are a lot of
like the staircases in the cathedral that kind of go up to nowhere.
Cool churches around Stockholm, but for me, the cathedral one is the best one to go check out. If you're going to spend the time and the money to go into one, that's the one you should go to. Now, the fourth thing we're going to do is we're going to leave the Old Town, and this is actually on TripAdvisor and the other sites. This is actually the #1 site people have, and that's the Vasa Museum. The Vasa is a ship that literally, after about, and it's first literally leaving dry dock, going out, it sank.
Two heavy cannons.
Because it was not balanced right, so it kind of tipped over, and then sank and went in. So literally, it was never actually out on the sea. It was just kind of out here in Stockholm and then sank. What's cool is that happened, I think, in 1628. They brought it back up, you know, in the last 50 years, and they've actually made a museum of it. They have the entire thing out, and you can see it from the outside. And what's cool is they have exhibits all around to show what was life like inside the boat and at that time.
So it must have been covered in hundreds of years of barnacles and all of that, and I can't imagine the shape it was in when they pulled it up. They must have had to do a lot of refurbishing.
Inquests that happened when the boat sank and all kinds of stuff. And actually a pretty fantastic museum when you're there. And the
Sorry,
thing
guys,
is, if
you can hear Overwatch in the background. I gotta shut it off.
like that whole area where it's at, there's other museums to check out. You know, you go to the ABBA, the museum. Yes, ABBA, the singing group. Dancing Queen, she's only 17.
Okay.
That's them. They actually have a museum here, and no, that's not in my top 10, but that's over there by the Vasa Museum. The fifth thing to do is when you're going by the Vasa Museum, you get the ABBA Museum, or ABBA, the museum, and then you have Skansen, which is an open air museum and a zoo there. It's a park, and you can go there all year round, but if you come in the summer months, May through September, you go there and they have the historic buildings from all over Sweden there, so you can kind of see old historic Sweden and then folk kind of stuff, but they have interpreters there that tell you about what was life back in the day in Sweden, and it's kind of cool because then you get, again, the old world feel, the old Sweden feel.
I just have a question. Lapland, I think it is, or that kind of upper area of Sweden, is it kind of like the Alaska of Sweden? Like, it seems like a very big portion of the country, but I'm guessing little to no people probably live there.
And these interpreters are actually pretty good, and they give you a real feel of what it was like back then. And you get to see the architecture, how the workers worked, and all kinds of stuff. And it is pretty cool. Now, I've been there in the summer, and it's much better in the summer than when I went there in March when there were no interpreters there and I froze my behind off. And that whole area has a bunch of museums to check out. Like I said, the Vasa Museum, Skansen Outdoor Museum. There's an amusement park there. And if you want to learn more about Swedish culture and you don't want to be outside, like I said, because it's cold outside, you can go to the Nordiska Museum, which is across from the Vasa Museum, all in that area, and that will give you, the folk culture.
Svenska trender och traditioner. Swedish trends and traditions.
Just across from the Vasa Museum, all in that area, and that will give you, the folk culture of Sweden, Swedish culture, the history, all these kind of things, so you get a feel of how people dressed and lived back in the day in Sweden. It's really well done if you like Swedish history, and if you have a Swedish ancestors, I really recommend going to Skansen and the Nordiska Museum because you get a really feel of how your family lived before they came to America. Now, I'll just put the Skansen Museum and Nordiska together, but Skansen...
From what I know, my ancestors came from Ireland, England, and France, so I don't believe I have any Swedish.
It's way better. Now, the seventh thing you should do when you're here is you'll notice here in Stockholm there's water everywhere. Go take a boat trip. Taking a boat trip around, you can see a lot of the sites, good interpretation, but for all the walking you're doing around Stockholm to see all these sites, it's really cool to sit back, relax, and take it all in from the water. Really cool things to do. There's lots of hop-on, hop-offs, so well worth checking out. You'll see the Swedes really love their nature, and if you want...
Are there certain places you can, walk footsteps of Gustavus Adolphus? He must have been somewhere around here, right?
Want to get out of nature? Yes, you can go to Skansen. There's lots of little parks around, or hop.
You can go in the Royal Palace, can't you? But I don't know how much access.
Really love their nature, and if you want to get out of nature, yes, you can go to Skansen. There's lots of little parks around, or hop in the water. You can go kind of south of town, and you have the Djurgården, where the locals like to go to kind of relax and have the fresh air and nature. Good place for a picnic. Take the family. We got our little kids, so we're going to go there and kind of chillax there and have a free time on our picnic. Kind of a nice thing to do if you're looking for kind of a nature refuge in the city without the museums and stuff like that. The eighth thing, I'm going to put a couple museums together here, is what you should know is Stockholm and Sweden in general is really famous for its design, and two of the museums that really do a good job of showing the modernity and the kind of coolness of Sweden, or of Stockholm in general, is one, the Photography Museum. And when you go to the Photography Museum, you start to understand...
Sorry, I just want to say one thing. I noticed that as we would go into Belgium, which is Brussels. So Innsbruck was probably my favorite city I visited in Europe. Again, we were driving through. We didn't spend much time in any one city, so I can't give a full account, but it was just beautiful. But Brussels in Belgium, you notice this kind of, I noticed a stark difference in architecture kind of when we went from Normandy and went east towards and northeast into Belgium, that architecture seemed to change a bit. Like it seems that Denmark, and I noticed it here too in Sweden, this kind of Nordic Scandinavian type architecture with the kind of, you think of the tall, thin buildings with the very sharp angle triangular roofs, or at least front of it, it kind of transitioned there, and it has a modern yet medieval kind of feel to it at the same time, and it's really cool.
That photography is an art. Okay, this isn't for the selfie stick people, okay? This is photography as art, and it is fantastic. What's cool is there's a restaurant on the top there. Go eat there, good food and a good view of the city, to go check that out. The other museum I'm gonna put at number 8 is the Museum of Modern Art, because again, modern design, these kind of things is really big here in Sweden, and the Modern Art Museum of Stockholm is well worth visiting. Number 9 on our list is the City Hall right behind me. Yes, some people have it higher on their list. All these places are cool to go, but the City Hall, you can take a tour inside, and the main halls there, like the Blue Hall and places, are just spectacular to see. And what's cool is this is actually where they have the Nobel Prizes given every year. Well, 4 of the 5 given here, and it is a really cool place to check out to see the inside. It is pretty amazing. Look at the ceilings when you go in. You know, it's just really cool. It's kind of like a Viking house in the ceiling. I mean, it is a really neat place to go, so definitely check out the City Hall. And then the 10th thing I want to have you do is leave Stockholm. Get out of Stockholm. And there's 2 things I'd recommend to do. 1, go get a boat and go out in the archipelagos, the islands around here. Go out there, get back to nature. Go kayaking, go take a boat, go swimming, hit a sauna, go grilling. Enjoy the outdoors in the archipelago, because it is just one of those things. You got to really understand Swedes. You got to get out to nature and go and get in the water and all these kind of things.
The Baltic is going to be freezing.
Archipelago. And another thing you should do when you come here is, if you want to see where the royal family actually lives, and you want to get that like big, you know, palace feel, not in the city but outside, you can go to the Drottningsholm Palace. I know I'm butchering the name, but that's where the royal family actually has its residence. And when you go there, palace, I know I'm palace feel, not in the city but outside, you can go to the Drottningsholm Palace. I know I'm butchering the name, but that's where the royal family actually has its residence. And when you go there, there's the Baroque gardens and the English gardens that are there that are cool to check out. The Chinese pavilion, you got the palace church. You can go to the palace and see all the stuff out there, so you can get kind of the, I want to see the apartments of the king and all these kind of things, and queen and all this stuff. And it is a cool place to go, and it's outside, so you can, again, have the gardens, have the outdoor stuff, and get the history as well. And honestly, Stockholm is a great place to come for a weekend. These are just 10, probably actually 14 or 15 places.
Is the queen, is she princess married? Because I could become the king of Sweden. That disrespectful. Was that,
you know, to check out and do when you are here? Other cool stuff to do. Going out, nightlife here is great, but make sure you dress the part to go out. Eating here, the restaurants in Stockholm are fantastic, from all over the world, not just Swedish meatballs, but any international fare. Really great restaurants here. So those are my top 10 things.
I will not do the Swedish chef.
Do here in Stockholm. What are yours? If you're a local, you're a traveler, and you got some ideas, please put it in the comments section below to give more ideas and more help for those to enjoy more of Stockholm. Anyway, I'll say bye from Stockholm, and have a great trip. If you want to learn more,
keys are everywhere.
5 things you're going to love and hate about Stockholm, 5 things you're going to love and hate about Sweden, 10 things that'll shock you about Sweden. They're all on our website at Walter.
Awesome. Great video. Sorry if I was a bit annoying at the end there. It tends to be how it is. See you guys next time.